the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Tennessee side of things, when I was thinking about the projected depth chart, because this exercise got started by me just thinking about the Georgia side of things and seeing Jake Rowe's piece over there on Dogs HQ. But I think for me, when I think about the projected depth chart this year, and this is something that I wrote about extensively today over at sportsrenaissanceman.com, something that stands out to me is the receivers. Like, you feel good when you go through the history of the Josh Heupel era thus far. The first 2 years, Tennessee was very fortunate. I wouldn't even say the first 2 years, first year and a half, basically, they were fortunate at the receiver spot. And one of the interesting things that happened was after year one, where you were only playing Javonte Payton, Velus Jones Jr., and Cedric Tillman, they combined for nearly 2,000 snaps in 2021. And Jalen Hyatt filtered in a little bit, but he didn't get on the field a whole bunch. So fans were wondering, like, oh, is this just like part of the deal? Is it tempo? Is there a reason that we don't rotate that much at that position? Like, how is that going to work recruiting wise? This, that, and the other. 22, Cedric Tillman burst onto the scene at Pittsburgh and gets 22 catches or whatever it was, targeted a bunch, game-winning touchdown catch to save the Vols. He has an ankle injury. My wedding weekend against Akron. And he has tightrope surgery. And he's never like 100% the rest of the season, right? Like, he's now an awesome NFL player for the Browns, starting for them. Shout out to Cedric Tillman. But he was not the same from that game on. They were lucky, though, because they had Ramel Keaton waiting in the wings, who rose to the challenge, had a big catch, obviously, against Florida, and really settled in for Cedric Tillman. Like, he was not as good as Cedric Tillman, but he was solid. And Tennessee's offense obviously was number one in the country there. So, first 2 years, still not a lot of rotation. Like, once Ramel went in, it was still those three. Like, you weren't like they've rotated the last couple of years. Like, they've been trying to find their best three. Like Brew McCoy, someone who looked like he was bursting onto the scene in 23. He has that gruesome ankle injury against South Carolina, which just sucks because Brew McCoy was going to be a star. People don't remember like how explosive he was before that injury in that game. And I think Brew McCoy was going to have an all-time great Tennessee receiver season before that injury 2 years ago. But again, you had to make some adjustments on the fly. You had some bad injury luck. Squirrel White played in all 13 games this year, but he was banged up throughout the year, and he had his worst season as a ball in the slot in his 3 years. This year, you look at the depth chart, and you look at, okay, every single receiver in that 7-man room is a blue chipper except for one guy, and it's the upperclassman, the lone upperclassman, and Chris Brazzell. He's a 3-star transfer from Tulane. There's a bunch of turnover in that room. It's glaring to look at that depth chart and to see how young it is and how thin it is, because you only added one portal guy who you hope can help you this year, but it seems like that's a year away. Amari Jefferson from Alabama. We'll see. He's a 4-star kid out of Baylor. We'll see what he can give you. But like, there's a scenario where you're like, man, Boo Carter is really going to play some serious snaps in the slot if the injury bug hits this team, because I just don't know where you go. Do you really throw Joakim Dotson, who's a true freshman? He was one of your 2 late enrollees. He didn't get here in December. The only other slot guy there outside of Boo Carter. So you look at that and you're like, Mike is a 5-star outside guy. He has all the talent to break out. Braylon Staley, 4-star guy, has all the talent to break out. Chris Brazzell, year 2 in the system. We've seen transfers make that year 2 jump, whether that was Jalen Hyatt, whether that was Cedric Tillman, whether that was Dante Thornton, Brew McCoy in 23. Like, we've seen that over and over again. Like, it takes a year for these guys to get comfortable in the system. So if you told me that Chris Brazzell had a solid bounce back year in his final year, potentially at Tennessee, that wouldn't surprise me. But I think what's flipped to me when I look at it, what's so interesting is I think you don't want a rotation. If there is a rotation this year at receiver for Tennessee, the passing game is going to suck, I think, because that means you're not getting what you need, or you're getting destroyed with the injury bug and you're just trying out different freshmen, because you have Rodarius Jackson and Travis Smith, 2 true freshmen, 4-stars, good players who I like a lot, who could be good. You don't want to throw them into the fire here on a team that's trying to make it back to the CFP. And it's just, like I said, a hard offense to learn, especially for receivers in their first year. They have to have those 3 guys, Brazzell, Staley, and Mike. They have to play a bunch of snaps. They have to get close to that 2,000 snap number in 2021. So it's like, even though that was so long ago and the conversation was around, hey, we need to start rotating more to get these guys more experience and more ready to go, This year, I'm like, no. We don't want to rotate at all. Like, you just got to get through this year. Like, you got ravaged in the portal. You didn't add enough. It is what it is. But, like, you're okay because I got asked about this on my radio show last week, is like, you're okay if Brazzell, Mike, and Braylon don't get hurt. But if you have one lingering injury or one issue with like a Mike or even a Brazzell, like then your lone veteran's gone potentially, and you're just going super young. And I just have a hard time believing that goes well for Tennessee's passing game. And you kind of need this passing game to get back on track after 2 years of below average quarterback play. That you fans are getting kind of antsy about the downfield passing game. So I just think it's a really interesting thing to look at the step chart offensively and think about how much I don't want rotation at receiver, because I think that was the talking point in the first couple of years of the Heupel era. It's like, hey, yeah, the tempo is awesome, the big time plays are awesome, but like, are we going to rotate there? Is that because you rotate so much at running back, like it's gonna be hard to keep these receivers, these talented receivers you're bringing in if you don't rotate. And now I think this year it's like, man, you can't rotate. These guys need to play 2,000 snaps total combined.
I think it's fair to start to question the passing game after 2 years in a row. I think if this team can be fine, offensively, if they get the running game going like they usually do, and these guys are serviceable. But I think if this offense is actually going to be good next year, I think Mike Matthews has to be the 5-star wide receiver he was coming out of high school. Like he's got to be a star. And maybe I don't think you're going to get that from Brazzell, because if Brazzell was that, he probably would have done it last year, but he could be a good player in 2025. But I think Mike Matthews feels like the only one that has that ceiling of like, could be a game changer for their offense if he takes the steps that you kind of expect based on the high school ranking.
No, I agree. Like, I just want Brazzell to be like, I don't think he even beat Dante Thornton last year, who I think was one of the best receivers in the SEC and honestly college football as a whole when he was on the field. But give me Javonte Payton in 2021. Like, just a good, like, made something happen after the catch, gets a couple balls a game, like 3 catches for 60 yards more often than not, with a touchdown sprinkled in every couple of games. That would be fine on the
Personally, outside. Cedric Tillman is my number 1 Tennessee receiver in recent years. Like, I know Hyatt was the Blitnikoff winner, right? Did he win the award?
Yes.
I know his stats is the huge game versus Alabama, the moments, but I just always felt like Cedric Tillman had the highest upside as like an NFL receiver.
I mean, I don't know even know what he's doing
right now. What is he doing?
He's starting for the Browns.
I feel like I believe in Cedric Tillman. He's a big body receiver. Like, I don't know. Hyatt still hasn't been very good, right, to this point?
No, he hasn't been able to figure it out to this point, but still time. But yeah, Cedric Tillman's fine. Hyatt's with the Giants.
Yeah, 2 years in the league so far?
Yes. Same year that Tillman came in, yeah.
Okay.
But I think Tillman is just the what if, because he was on pace for a big time year. He got kind of do you remember the Alabama season with Devontae and Waddle, where Waddle obviously got hurt and it kind of opened the door for Devontae to break out?
Yeah, Waddle was like their best receiver in the first like 4 or 5 games.
That's what happened in 22 for Tennessee, where Cedric Tillman was their best receiver. Like, you go back and watch that Pitt game. Hendon Hooker was looking for Cedric Tillman early and often, and it was just not the same guy after the ankle thing in Akron. But Jalen Hyatt benefited greatly from becoming. I mean, Hyatt would have had a great year, but I do think Tillman not being the same from Akron on was hugely beneficial for him.
Because Tillman was the intended receiver on that Ringo pick, right? In Sanford Stadium. Like the big time game, like number 1 versus number 1.
I recall. I wish we would have seen it without the conditions being what they were.
I think it was a perfect day for football, sir.
Well, I don't know. That's like also one of those things, like those footballisms where it's like, that's you know what I don't like? Football weather. I'm like, no, it's not. This is not football weather. No, football weather is 75, nice and like maybe even hotter, like good conditions, sunny.
I mean, what was it, like 21-3 or something when it started raining? It was like third quarter when it started raining, right? I can't remember what. I know the first, that just the awful non-safety call. It's just like the worst call I've ever seen. But then so that was McConkey was the first. No, the first touchdown was when Stetson did the whole call me thing. So then they went up 14-0 on that McConkey touchdown.
Not 14-0, because I think Tennessee had a field goal early. Tennessee went up 3-0.
Were they up 3? Oh,
because y'all had a fumble. Y'all fumbled early, and Tennessee picked up the fumble and kicked a field goal.
That's right. Fumble around like midfield or something. Yeah. That sounds familiar. Okay. Maybe McIntosh was it that fumbled? I can't remember.
Good question. No, it was a freshman. Who was that? I remember. I don't think it was McIntosh, but I thought it was a freshman for some reason.
A freshman. I don't know who that would have
Who
been.
was
Branson
running?
Robinson.
If you say the name off top of your, like, who were the
Branson
22?
Robinson would have been a freshman.
It wouldn't have been him though.
I don't know. Dejon Edwards.
It might have been Edwards.
Milton.
Oh, it was Milton. It was Milton.
So yeah, it was like 20-3. What was the final score of that game? It was something. It didn't look like 27-13, something like that. Like it didn't look like as big of a blowout as it truly was, right?
Well, what I will also say about that,
I think it was raining. It was already a blowout when it was raining. That's all.
Here's what I will say about that game, though. There are 3 plays, deep bombs that a couple were dropped by Tennessee. There were a couple shot plays, and I'm just telling you, Tennessee usually hit those. And I am not saying, like, what I am saying is if those hit, I'm not like a couple of those, it is maybe a different game. But the problem also is Jalen Carter was best player on the field, and Tennessee could not handle Jalen Carter at the line of scrimmage. Like Georgia's defensive line was just
and I mean, there was that in the fourth quarter where they literally got a sack like 5 plays in a row. Like Javon Bullard got a sack like 2 or 3 plays in a row on the corner blitz. And then I think Georgia got a face mask on the sack that was like on 3rd and long. And then they got like 2 more sacks or something. It was insane. It was a great day for football. We should relive this game more often.
Hard pass, Matt Green. Before we dive into our SEC biggest games of the West plus Texas, Matt Green, I think you have a college football playoff take you want to get off your chest here.
I do, sir. Been a couple weeks since we had my CFP Bowl predictions. This is my 4th one so far. And I don't know if you know, but last year we had 7 of the 12 teams were teams that had a first-year starting quarterback. And that's not that means first year starting for their team, not, Gabriel or who else, a couple transfers that obviously had started before. I think in 2025, we will
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.